Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with David Strickle, the Stream of David. This is your daily dose of happy, and we're so happy you decided to join us today. And David's been away for the last week, but we're glad to welcome you back, sir. And hope you had a great trip and got things done while you were away. But we missed you, and the evidence that we missed you is that the questions piled up. So that's how you know you were missed. It's nice to be missed, don't you think?
Yes. Thank you. We froze there for a moment, so I wasn't quite sure. I had a little taste of fall. So I left Palm Springs, where it's still 80 degrees every day. We broke from 100 degrees every day, which is nice. But yeah, I wanted a little taste of fall. So we went to Wisconsin for a week. It was beautiful up there and missed the snow. I did have a thunderstorm, which was nice. I love thunderstorms. So I got to for the first time in over a year. And rain for the first time in over a year, quite frankly. It hasn't even
wow.
all year, all 2020. So it's nice to get away, and now I'm back in the sun, which is good. A little chilly here.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then let's get to it, because we've had some various emails from people listening to the program, and a few of them are for the stream to answer, but one I think is good for you and I to discuss first. So I'm going to bring that in and get your opinion on it. This comes from Deborah, and she wrote a rather extensive message, so bear with me while I read it. She says she's very much enjoying the podcast, and she's almost finding it confusing with the different approaches to law of attraction. That means among the different co-hosts that are on the show, because everybody has a little bit different approach to how the whole thing works. She says, I find that I very much follow all that Louis says, maybe because he's more of a classic Abraham master. Love his stories, such as the Jaguar purchasing that he's been telling us a lot about. I know I should go with what resonates, but I'm also really interested in what the other presenters have to say and feel there's a lot to get out of all of them. You've created a great lineup. Thank you very much, Deborah. So to get down to a few specifics, there seems to me to be an inherent discrepancy between what David was saying about transgressor energy / demons and what Abraham says about not focusing on the negative. That in fact, you don't have to go back and work through anything as it's a bottomless pit. They indeed refuse to even let the hot seaters tell their negative stories or argue for their restrictions, as Abraham would say. Am I maybe misunderstanding something here, or are they simply two very different approaches? I have a few other questions too, which is hopefully a good thing, as I'm not asking just for the sake of it, but I'm really interested in gaining a bit more clarity and depth. So thank you very much. It's a huge undertaking doing the show 5 days a week, and it's very much appreciated. Well, it is appreciated by me too, Deborah. Believe it or not, it's not as big of an undertaking as you might think, because I love it. So it's actually a very easy undertaking, but I do appreciate your appreciation. So thank you. So what do you think, David? Tell us about the difference between the stream and Abraham.
Because if somebody wanted to ask what the difference was between the Abraham teachings and what the stream offers, it's that. That's a big difference between the two. And I think it's a difference in the filtration of the channeler's perspective. Okay. I cannot speak for Esther and what she's sharing with Abraham. Sure. I can say that a whole lot of Abraham resonated. I don't consume Abraham anymore, simply because I really want the stream to be its own thing. But I spent years consuming Abraham material and loved it. And where I struggled was this idea of vibration, getting into the vortex. I know what that means, which means keeping your vibration high, being connected to source, and being in that high vibrational state of just joy and allowing. And I think that for some people that works. For me, it did not. For me, I had demons that went, and the stream has gotten a lot into vibrational flow recently. You've probably noticed the past few weeks, we're getting really into talking about appreciating vibrational flow, that we have up and we have down. We're all subject to vibrational flow. I think Abraham would say, you're in the vortex and you're out of the vortex. Their teachings kind of stop at just get into the vortex. And for me, and a lot of people that I end up working with, especially in Taya boot camp, that in and out, there was more complexity than that. It was kind of a simplistic answer to how we manage vibrational flow that works for some people, but doesn't work for everyone. And I was frustrated with it. And I knew that there was more than what was being offered by the Abraham message. And I always want to really, really get the point across that I'm not trying to criticize Abraham, because all of these things have an audience and have a purpose and have a vibrational match to them. A lot of people criticize the book The Secret, because The Secret was a very simple explanation of the law of attraction and gave a lot of people the idea that if you sit and think about a bicycle is going to appear in front of your house. And everything in The Secret is true, but it doesn't go very deep, and it left a lot of people frustrated. The positive thing about The Secret is that it introduced in a very elegant way, if you will, the idea of law of attraction to millions of people. One of the best-selling books of all time. And to me, I hear this almost every day because I talk to people about getting into Thai boot camp almost 5 days a week at this point. And I read The Secret, and then I got into Abraham, and now I'm into you. Sort of progression. I said, well, that's pretty common, because I think some people can read The Secret and really have their lives changed by that. That's all they ever need. Some people want to know, well, where did this originate from? I think it's there's a lot of people that think that all of The Secret originated from the Abraham teachings. I'm not getting involved in that argument because I really don't know. I know that Abraham was involved and then they weren't. That's all I really know about all that. And then they want to go a little deeper, and they get into Abraham. And for some people, a lot of people, Abraham works brilliantly and they love it, and it's all they want, it's all they need, and it's a perfect vibrational alignment. And then some people are frustrated with Abraham. And then they land on the stream and realize that, okay, for some of us, we have to go back and deal with those demons, because those demons are the things that are keeping us out of the vortex. Those demons, if you will, they're not really demons. I'm not into any demonic ideas, but we refer to our dark side, our dark energy, our out of the vortex energy is demons very often. I want to be very clear about that too. There were things from my past that were haunting me that I couldn't just forget about. That was the thing about the Abraham teachings for me. Yes, I get it. Get in my vortex, be happy, everything that I want comes, joy, 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 love it, great message, but no, I'm haunted by this and this and this, and I can't shake that stuff. So the stream started going into a little more depth about what all that is about. And now with this vibrational flow teaching, they're going really deep into the power of negative. That negative is actually there to inspire new positive, and that therefore there is no negative from their perspective. But from our human perspective, we have things in the past that we are still viewing as negative. And when we are out of the vortex or down our spiral or whatever you want to call it, our point of view regarding those things can be negative. You can't just focus on everything without doing some work and say, gosh, everything that's ever happened in my life is just brilliant, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, it's great, and really mean it and really vibrate with that. So I created the Taya practice to give people the tools to fully come to appreciate all of their negative, all of their demons, all of their dark, whatever you want to call it. And it works. For those people, it works. So we have different segments of the population for whom all of these teachings and all of these things work brilliantly. We're not in a one-size-fits-all world. So the stream's teachings are a little different than Abraham's teachings. I don't think there's a lot of conflict, but I think Abraham's method is focus on what you want and you're going to get what you want. 100% true. The stream's method is focus on what you want, you're going to get what you want. And when you're down the spiral or out of the vortex, this is what you need to do to get back up, get back in, and fully appreciate the flow of all of that.
And that's a valuable skill for sure, because dealing with the real world as we often do, hopefully, most of us. some of us actually prefer not to, but I think most of us end up dealing with the real world most of the time. You're going to end up having times where you're just not feeling it. You're just not in that high-flying disc, as Abraham likes to term it. And I love that high-flying disc. It's a good feeling. It's a wonderful feeling. I can't say that I've succeeded in getting up there all the time, or even most of the time. I've gotten up there a fair amount of the time, and most of the time I'm fairly close to it, but not 100%. So when you came along and started talking about looking at the dark side and transgressors and so forth, I kind of suspect, like most people, I was asking myself, well, do I have transgressors that I have not let go of? And I think part of my problem with it, with the whole conversation, is I'm not really clear what a transgressor is. And I'll say that because there are times that I'll hang on to stuff that I know is keeping me out of the vortex, but can I really say that it's a transgressor that's causing it? Not really. From my perspective, it's like, it's me. I'm just making the choice. I know I'm making the choice. I don't like the fact that I have this strong tendency to make the choice. And in that way, I kind of resonate with what you're talking about, the tendency to, you know, be all hung up on what's going on with the negative side. But by the same token, I know I'm doing it. I just haven't figured out completely how to let go of doing it, but I know I'm the one who's doing it.
Well, we define a transgressor as any unwanted person, circumstance, or event, past or present. And so it's anything that you cannot look upon in full appreciation as a transgressor. So your opinion of it, your judgment of it, is what makes it a transgressor. So it is ultimately you.
Okay.
But again, when you've had trauma in your life, you can't just one day decide that the fact that you were sick all the time as a child, and you suffered cancer, and you had multiple surgeries, or you were molested, or your parents disowned you, or whatever it was, you can't just suddenly flip a switch and just make that stuff disappear. That
So
takes
really,
that
really
is
the tire practice as you put together has been aimed primarily, not exclusively, at people who've had some sort of significant traumas in their background that they haven't been able to let go of. And I know that is a big my wife considers that a big deal. That was one of her objections to Abraham when she first heard Abraham.
yeah.
So that seems to me basically where you're targeting, and that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, anything can be transgressor energy until you can find appreciation for it. Now, if you had a business that went bankrupt, and then you went on and started a different business, and for a while that bankruptcy was a transgressor for you, and then your next business is wildly successful, and then you can look back and say, wow, I would have never built this if I didn't go bankrupt in that. Well, you've cleared that transgressor energy because you found a path to appreciation for it. In that scenario, you've done the work yourself without really having to do the work. You've just sort of righted the wrong, if you will, naturally. Whereas when you're quote unquote victimized by something, you hold on to that victim vibration until you find appreciation for it. And it's not always easy to do, but I work with people, again, rape victims and people, that had the people that were, seriously abused by parents and other people and things like that. It takes work to release that transgressor energy. So when you've got that stuff in your past and you're over here trying to get in the vortex and just feel good, and then every time something triggers you back to that trauma, well, yeah, you're not going to be getting in the vortex. So it takes a little more work than that. So that's why Abraham has an audience for whom those teachings work beautifully, but there's other people for whom they do not. Universal law is universal law, but how you go about applying it in your physical life, that's where the nuances come in. And that's why different teachers are necessary, if you will. And I asked that question. I loved Abraham. When I was really called to start sharing this, one of the first things I said was, well, why in the world do I need to share what I used to call my knowing when we have Abraham? And the answer was very clear, that this is not a one size fits all world. That Abraham has an audience that is a vibrational match to that message. And you are going to create your own audience that has a vibrational match to what you create. And from there came the stream, and the stream of David and Taya and all that stuff that got created since then. That really is a nuanced differently than what the Abraham teachings are. But it's all, universal law is universal law. But how we apply that from our human perspective is where the differences come in.
And that makes sense. Let me take it one step further, and this is more in alignment with my own situation. I suspect there are a fair number of people who are in a similar situation, because I can't point in my background to significant traumas. I by most standards, I had what some people would call a privileged upbringing. I don't consider it to be privileged, but I was a non-victimized kid. I didn't have major traumas going on. I had little minor traumas, but everybody has those growing up. It's not a big deal. Nevertheless, I find myself at times in kind of an in-between space, not quite in the transgressor space where you had a major thing that went on in the background, but on the other hand, never really completely in what I'll call the Abraham space in the context of what we're talking about here, where I can just easily just flip that switch and get into the high vibe space. It's kind of like I'm in between. I don't know what even to call that.
Yeah, well,
Now,
I lump all of it into transgressor energy because, again, full appreciation. If you're not in full appreciation of it, it's transgressor. It may not be a serious transgressor, It may be a transgressor that's easy to clear,
Oh, okay.
but it's still
Okay.
transgressor energy. It's still that little, what does the stream call it? Vibrational dust. That little vibrational dust. That means there's still, we talk a lot about detuning. We don't talk about eradicating, because everything that's ever happened and everything that's ever going to happen is happening simultaneously, right? It's just all conscious.
Sure.
So the vibe of that is, but we expand it. We detune it. When you expand the vibration of something, you are looking at it from a more sophisticated perspective. And a more sophisticated perspective would be one of non-judgment and non-fear regarding anything. So if you remove fear and judgment from any human topic, there's no transgressor energy left. You can detune it down to that level of full appreciation.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that provides good framework then for us in-betweeners. I don't know what else to call us. I think I'll call us tweeners for lack of a better term.
Vibrational dusters.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not exactly roll off the tongue either, does it?
No, not really, but that's all right. We'll find the right one at some point along the way. So, okay. Well, that gives us that gives a good answer. I hope that Deborah found that answer useful. And we have 3 other questions for the stream to address. So I'm going to ask you to make your connection. And in the meantime, I'm going to give a couple of reminders to our audience. First and foremost, if you have a question you'd like to ask the stream, or indeed any of the other co-hosts here on the show, that's why we included a form. It's a question asking form in the LOA Today app. And by the way, for those of you who have reported that there are issues with playing the episodes in the LOA Today app, yes, I'm aware of those. I'm actually trying to learn some new technologies that will eliminate those issues. It seems like it should be something that's very easy to fix, but no, not so easy apparently. So I'm learning about that, but I'm working on that. But in the meantime, you can still use the form to fill in your question that you want to be asked to either David or the stream, or to Louie or Amy, or to Linda or Rita or any of the others who are co-hosts here on the show. So take advantage of that and send in your question. By the way, one of our listeners wrote in and pointed out that it's a little bit cumbersome to fill in the form on an app because of the screen so small and so forth, and tapping, tip tapping it out with your thumbs can be a little bit tiresome and cumbersome. And I just want to remind people, the app form works just great with Siri on an iPhone or Google Assistant on an Android phone. So you can just dictate it. That's the way I like to fill out forms. So just kind of a little tip to use for those of you who maybe have been holding back because you really didn't feel like you could tap that out on a phone. Well, there's an easy way to do it. So I see a look on David's face that suggests a connection. Are we talking to the stream?
We are here.
We're talking to the stream. Good news. All right. So stream, once again, welcome back to the program. And we have a few listener questions to bring in. So without further ado, this one comes from Sarah. Sarah wrote, even though time doesn't really exist, I'm curious, is the shift of vibrational flow from a relatively high vibe to a relatively low vibe and then up again something we go through in a matter of minutes, hours, days, or weeks?
Vibrational flow is a combination of energies, if you will, that are very much rooted in what we refer to as polarity, meaning the flow of the energetic realm, which has somewhat of a rhythm to it. This is where your astrology comes from. There is a certain level of predictability in this rhythmic flow, and absolutely your date and time and even place of birth all impact that. But your mind supersedes your natural vibrational flow. So if you have trained your mind to, for example, react more negatively to things, you are going to hold yourself in lower vibrational flow more frequently than polarity is going to move you into. So you all have your unique vibrational signature, if you will, that you have created throughout your lifetime, that is a combination of polarity and your reaction to your polarity and your reaction to your past and your reaction to the sum of events that you have created for yourselves. So it's a unique flow that you cannot depend on anyone else to measure on your behalf. This is why we guide you away from going to any other, including us, to have someone predict what your future is going to be, because it is all law of averages at its best regarding the polarity of the universe. Your thought process, your power of positive thinking or power of less than positive thinking is going to have actually more impact on your results than polarity is going to have. So it's not a predictable thing. And we guide you away from concerning yourselves so much on trying to make this prediction. Just like predicting when Mercury is in retrograde and things of this nature. Are there elements of that are true and have an impact? Absolutely there are. But if you start focusing on when this cycle is expected, your mind inevitably is going to be bracing itself for impact of these negative events that you often believe are going to transpire as a result of that type of polarity. So you're going to start predicting your own negative outcomes and thus create your own negative outcomes based on your prediction of your flow. And there are any number of things that can trigger a vibrational drop, if you will, or a vibrational increase. You can be in a very high vibrational flow and suddenly you have a trigger that reminds you of transgressor energy that is present, and that will trigger you down. So there's no predicting what your flow is truly going to be. Where we guide you with the practice that we have delivered is to be very aware of your vibration at all times and have the set of tools that if you so choose, you can utilize to raise your vibration back up. And this is through finding appreciation for vibrational flow itself, finding appreciation for the lower vibrational thoughts and activities and results that you receive, knowing that finding appreciation for the lower vibrational aspects of humanity will simply bring your vibration right back up. And when you do that, anything that you have created as an obstacle in the lower vibrational field, you are going to have all the tools to solve it when you're back up. So the moral to all of this is to pay more attention to your personal vibration and know what it's all about, what the purpose of it is, so that you can be in full appreciation of it, and then build yourselves a set of tools to move back up in grace and ease.
That's a great answer. Sarah's question, when I first read it, when it first came into us, really caught my attention, and I love the way you answered it. One of the things I thought about when I first read the question is she was kind of alluding to the idea that vibration can be measured in short term, long term, middle term, in terms of like minutes, hours, days, or weeks. And it occurred to me, vibration actually shifts in any of those realms. I mean, we can have vibrational shifts within minutes, we can have vibrational shifts within hours, or we can have vibrational shifts that take weeks or months or even years
You will
to
notice that
shift.
you have a vibrational pattern that you can go through a very high vibrational pattern of life in general and have very positive results from this high vibrational period. And then the polarity and vibrational flow will inevitably drop a bit, and you will create a set of obstacles from which to spring back up from. But that also applies, again, as you were sharing, your month, your week, your day, hour by hour, your vibration is all over the place. Your overriding vibration may be up here, but when you go to start the car and the battery is dead, you may plummet a bit. But if your overarching vibration is high, you're going to have the tools to solve that problem and get right back up easier than you would if you were in a lower vibrational field.
Which is why most of what we talk about, what you talk about, what Abraham talks about, what those of us who do podcasts or people who write about this kind of thing talk about, is really more related with the longer term vibration, because that's the one that I'm going to say is more dominant. I may be inaccurate in that, but it seems to be the one that predominates. Maybe that's the better way to say it.
We
And
refer to
it's
that as your default vibration,
that's the
and
default. Okay.
your life is a reflection of your default vibration.
Right. Okay. And
Moment to moment, that is not necessarily your default vibration. That is your triggers. That is your triggers up and down your spiral, if you will. There are all sorts of different indicators that you can tell where you are on your vibrational spiral at all times. but you can be down your spiral in a moment, but certainly up your spiral in general in your life.
Right. Exactly. And I think what that all points to is that there's a great value in that, in looking at that long-term vibration, because that's where we're going to have the most stability. I think that's where we're going to experience the easier time, especially if we're in a higher vibration state. If we're in a long-term lower vibration state, then it becomes miserable. And that's kind of tied to what David was talking about before connecting to you about how we can have these major traumas in our lives that create these ongoing transgressor energies. I mean, that's basically a longer term default pattern that's been going on, isn't it?
But understand as well that your work on the little segments of your day to raise your vibration in the moment will actually bring you instantaneous joy, and
True.
establishing a practice of raising your vibration in the moment, day after day after day, will indeed raise your default vibration.
Yeah, they work hand in hand, don't they? I mean, it's not like they all work independently of each other. They're a combination.
You have these, this is a new term that we have not offered before, but you have these vibrational systems at play on different topics at different times that all come together to create one large system.
So those multiple systems are a way of describing what Sarah's describing in terms of her time frames.
Indeed. That is how she's perceiving it. If you come to think of it as a system, that you have a lower vibrational system going on in the day, in the moment of the day, you perhaps woke with a headache and haven't done any vibrational work or meditation or anything of that nature to raise your vibration, you are existing in a lower vibration in the moment of the day. But overall, your default vibration may be much higher than that. Then you get into a work scenario, and there is a work scenario that is positive, that raises your vibration a little bit. So this system is a little higher while you still have the headache, taking your physical vibration system down. But overall, your vibration is in an upward trajectory because you've got something more positive going on in the moment than you had in the moment before.
Okay, good. All right. Well, hopefully that's been helpful to Sarah. Let's move on to another question. This one's from Jim, who has previously asked questions. And he says on the podcast from October 4th, you said that, I guess this is an answer to a question that was raised at that point. You said that you, the stream, have been physical but are no longer physical, that you are, quote, too powerful for that, unquote. He's asking, can you please explain why you are too powerful to be physical? And can you tell us in linear time, when was the last time you were physical?
We will point out that any interaction, the vibration of the question and the answer in the moment is specific to that scenario. There are times that we are going to share things that, if you try to compare the two moments, may seem to be in conflict. What we will tell you is that we have been all things, and we have been no thing. And we continue to be all things. We continue to flow through all physical creation. So in that sense, absolutely, we are physical. We have been all things throughout time. But we are not the human version of physical. And we have not been the human version of physical, though we have flowed through the human version of physical. This is where the confusion can come in, because we are not speaking specifically from a human perspective, though we are using David's vocabulary as best he can to describe things that you do not have words for. All of the things that we try to point out and the pictures that we attempt to paint for you are always going back to a human perspective. When you are asking, have we been physical? Generally what is being asked is, have we been human beings? And are we singular beings? We are not singular beings. We have not inhabited a singular consciousness in a physical form. But we have flowed through all. So the answer to a question such as that will always be yes and no, and perhaps a bit frustrating. But it's because we are the source of all creation, and we flow through all creation, and we flow through each of you. So we are part of you. So in that sense, Yes, we have been physical. Yes, we continue to be physical. We understand physical, but we are not focused as a singular physical being and have not been.
Let's go back a little bit to the basics here, because I think that may help even more to address Jim's question. When we're talking to you, the stream, what we're really talking to is pure source energy. Is that not true?
You are communicating with the consciousness that is the source of all creation, filtered through a human being.
Mm-hmm. Right, filtered.
Through
Yeah, that's
that
a key
human
point.
being's intellect and vocabulary, and limited
Right.
to that.
But I guess my point is, since you're pure source energy, uh, there are certainly going to be aspects of you, but nevertheless, we refer to you as we because you're not just one little strand. You are all the strands. You're the continuity of the strands, and so
We
it,
are.
it almost becomes it's like trying to take all of an ocean and say which part was in a glass of water. Like, well, you might be able to identify the particular drops of water, but what does that actually tell you? It's all water. It's still water. Some of it may have seawater, saline in it. Others may be fresh water, but it's still water, no matter how you're looking at it. Trying to pick out which particular drops went into which particular part of the ocean at which particular time, it's almost fruitless trying to figure that one out.
We have offered David explanations to help him on his journey of understanding that which we are. At one time, he referred to us as his knowing, and he requested a name, because there are so many who do what he does that have assigned a name. At one time, he was given the name Philip.
Hmm.
But that was his own human construct of his trying to make sense of what he was receiving, and he was not yet ready to fully comprehend the vastness of that which we are. He has evolved very quickly in his comprehension of what he is offering and what he is sharing. The explanation of it, however, has evolved for him over time, though nothing has changed. We are eternal beings flowing through him in such a way in physical linear time that is a blip on the radar in comparison to all that we are. But his comprehension of it had to fully open up to fully allow the sharing the way that he is sharing our message, the way that you are experiencing it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Let's do the second question that Jim sent in. This is the last of the three questions too, but it kind of ties together, I think, and it may actually it may give you a different way to answer the previous question. He says that he describes this as a question from a silly vibration. He says, "What is your reply when someone says, quote, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans, unquote? Do you laugh? And can David make the sound of your laugh so that we all know what that sounds like?"
Any non-spontaneous laugh would be manufactured on David's part. The idea of the saying, and it is a popular saying, because you all understand that when you plan things out, and the more exacting you are in the laying of plans, the more vibrational flow is going to come through and wreck all of that. But the true purpose of vibrational flow is not to wreck your plans, but is to ensure that the very best plans are the ones that you are focused upon, ensure that you are ready to carry out your plans, and ensure that you are creating the most perfect version of your plans. We very much appreciate the perfection of imperfection. So when we say perfect, we are saying the most sophisticated, the most highly evolved version of. And anything that you're not ready for, you inevitably are going to destroy before you create it. And destroying it and recreating it, and destroying it and recreating it, and destroying it and allowing it to evolve and be created yet again, that is the universal process of creation. We understand the idea of the question was to hear us laugh. But the vibration of the question was an excellent question. The thought process behind hearing the God energy, if you will, laugh at your plans brings up a very good point, that when you get really specific trying to make plans and get really specific with your timeline, the universe is going to have a different idea. And that different idea is vibrational flow. And that vibrational flow absolutely is going to wreck your plans. We may not have the level of humor that many are looking for at times. We are far drier, if you will, than David's persona, David's personality. But he is tuning in such a way that he is offering as little filtration as possible in the message that we are sharing. The little filtration means that there is not human in this. This is information, this is consciousness, this is intelligence. There are elements of David's personality certainly peppered in here and there, but his intentionality in sharing our message is to remove that as much as possible and give you the purest information possible. And that has proven to him and others to be very effective in assisting you in understanding the universal process of creation, understanding your purpose for being here on planet Earth, and understanding many of the things that actually trouble you so that you can enjoy your own laughter more.
I'm reminded also of a comment that Abraham made in response to a similar question about humor and laughter. And their comment was that humor and laughter depend upon the element of surprise. If there's no surprise, it's not funny. And since they're never surprised, it's hard for them to ever laugh at anything because they're not
Spontaneity,
surprised.
indeed. As we mentioned, spontaneity, indeed.
Yeah. So I can fully understand why you would describe your sense of humor as being dry. I personally, I'm always amazed at Abraham because at their workshops, they go out of their way to get the people in the audience to laugh. It's almost like a stand-up routine for the first 15 minutes of the presentation, just because they're trying to
That is
raise the
Esther's raising
vibration.
of the vibration in that scenario.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there is great value, especially in a large group like that, where you have a high intention of a high vibrational experience, but individual vibrations that are all over the place. There is nervousness.
right.
There is the desire to be called upon, and all of those things going on. And the delivery of what you would call the monologue in the beginning is all about raising the collective vibration to have a positive experience, especially in an in-person physical environment such as that.
And let's talk about that high vibe experience because, yes, it is important, but let's talk a little bit about why it's important. This is kind of going back to basics a bit, but I think it's important to this conversation too. Why is it important for us to be in that high vibe space when we're talking to you, for instance?
Because the higher the vibration is of the collective that are interacting, the more information that is being seeked out, if you will, is going to flow, whether the questions are directly asked or not. Because the audience is becoming more in alignment with what we are and what we are offering. So certainly it's going to create a more transformative experience and a more educational experience, if you will.
Plus, I think it's also easier to receive the message when you're in a high vibe space. When you're in a lower vibe space, I can't remember what the context was, but somebody the other day was describing their mind in a lower vibe space as being cloudy. And when you're in that cloudy space, it's harder to perceive things. It's harder to value things. It's harder to value things in a way that's appreciative just because it's a lower vibe space. When you're in the higher vibe space, it's so much easier to appreciate everything. High vibe, low vibe, middle vibe doesn't matter.
We have compared it to intoxication. When you consume too much alcohol, you are behaving and processing differently than when you're sober. When you are in lower vibration, you are a different being. This is why when you lose your temper and get into an argument with someone, especially someone that you care about, you will come back and say that you said things that you didn't mean. You did mean those things from a lower vibrational perspective. But when your vibration goes back up, you feel bad about what you have offered very often because it was from a lower vibrational perspective. You were a different being in that lower vibrational state than you are when you're up. And this is true for all creation. The vibrational state is very, very different. And it is a sophisticated consciousness as a human being. You are not even aware of what you were like when you were up, when you were really down. There are ones that come through David's program that 6 weeks, 8 weeks in cannot even remember what they were like when they joined. They go back and watch the recording that David makes for them from when they join, and they're completely different human beings.
Mm-hmm.
than they were, because they have raised their default vibration in the process. And you all have the ability to do that. And you all have vibrational flow occurring with you. And when you are in downward flow, what you would call low vibration, you are absolutely processing and behaving differently than when you're up. And very often you're somewhere in this middle territory where you don't even realize where you are. If anything negative is occurring around you at all, you're already down. You're already disconnected. If you're connected to our energy, nothing of that nature is going to be occurring around you whatsoever. So you're already down. And your slightly down the spiral reaction to a transgressor or an obstacle, if you will, can take you down even further. But you can get to a place where the arrival of the obstacle is met in joy, because you fully appreciate the process of creation and the vibrational flow that comes with that. You are never going to outrun what you call negative or unwanted things as a physical being. But you can stop fearing them and stop judging them. And when you do, you react to them very differently. And they do not have to hold you away from your joy. In fact, if you do not allow your obstacle to hold you away from your joy, you move back up in high vibration faster and solve whatever it is that you've manifested every single time, and expand in the process. You are becoming a more sophisticated being in your now human physical body. And you all have the ability to do this. And it is a major part of our message, is bringing you all to appreciate the downward spiral time, if you will, the negative that you encounter. Appreciate it for the gift that it is, because it serves as a launch pad for your next new creation. And your next new creation, whatever it is, even if it's just a better reaction to the obstacle, is your expansion, which is why you come to physical in the first place. So when you make peace with all of that, you start living a very different existence.
I'm enjoying what you're describing about us as being different beings when we are in different vibrational states. And I'm kind of reinterpreting that in my own mind to fit my own structure of how I think about these things. For instance, when I think about myself as part of the stream of, or the flow, or whatever you want to call it, of all of source energy, because I am part of source energy, I think of myself, well, on the one hand, I'm part of the whole. On the other hand, I'm an individual. And I don't see those as being contradictory in any way. I just see them as two different ways of looking at the same thing. So when you described being different beings in different vibrational states, the way I took that was, well, it's all just me, but when I'm in one vibrational state, there's one aspect of me. And when I'm in a different vibrational state, there's another aspect of me. It's like this whole collection of aspects of me, depending on what vibrational state I'm in. And I can shift from one to the other almost at will, just depending on where am I putting my focus, and where's my focus drawn to. And when I think about it that way, then I begin to realize I really am a pretty powerful being. I have all these different aspects. And even though some of them may seem low vibe compared to others that seem high vibe, in a very real sense, they're really all working together, aren't they? They're really just all one part of one larger system, if you will,
They're
to use the word you
components.
were
They are
talking about
systems.
earlier.
They are vibrational systems that come together and comprise the system that is you. Expressing yourself as a human being in what you are perceiving as your current lifetime, which is yet another part of another endless system that you are also part of. So this expression of life that is Walt, and the time that you are perceiving as a physical human being, is a little system that is running, that is contributing to the wholeness of that which you are, which is infinite. So this idea that you are always going to have the same opinion is very limited, unsophisticated, if you will, low vibrational thought that you're all capable of. But when you are truly zooming out to our perspective and removing fear and removing judgment and understanding that allowing polarity to impact you in such a way that you have to pick a side. Notice there's two sides in so many scenarios in your world. And you very often are told that you need to pick a side and stay there. But picking a side and staying there means that you're really not giving it any thought. because you
That's
are a
right.
vibrational being, and there's times that your vibration is up here, and you are going to be more in alignment with over here. And there's times that your vibration is quite lower, and you're going to be in alignment with something else, regardless of what it is. The idea of having to pick a side and stay there is lower vibrational thought. And that is a brilliant example of that. When you are appreciating vibrational flow, you are able to flow between ideas and truly never pick a side on anything, zooming out and truly seeing every perspective. Your politics is a prime example of that. People believing that they have to get on one side of things and think things and think exactly the way everyone else around them thinks, and cutting themselves off from any critical thinking regarding anything that is outside of that box. But that is not how you're designed. That is not how vibration works. That is why this polarized system does not produce any positive results, because it's all lower vibrational thinking to begin with, to believe that you've got to go down and pick a side and stay there.
And yet, how ironic that we have to be into the lower vibrational spaces in order to do the creation that provides the expansion. On the one hand, it doesn't produce any direct results. On the other hand, it produces all the results. It's
It's the
kind of a
launch
weird thing.
pad. You are indeed correct. It is the launch pad. The negative that has no creative power is there to inspire new creation. You take your vibration back up where all the creative power is, and then you create something new to solve the lower vibrational dilemma. Always. That is the process of creation, always. So there was a time where we will use politics as an example, since we ventured into that, and that is a very dominant vibration in your world right now. There was a time where politics did operate like that. You would pick a side and cast your vote, and then all would come together for the advancement of whatever was being governed. But time has evolved. You've become more polarized as things have sped up, and the lower vibrational aspect of that is that you are, quote unquote, damaging your democracy and damaging your nation in regard to in this example, the United States. But you're damaging it because your collective desire to reinvent it and bring it into your now is something that's more effective. But it needs to be damaged, if not somewhat destroyed, in the process. And when you move back up in vibration, and eventually polarity will take this issue back up as it does all things, then there will be a new solution that works better. But not until then. And the time frame is up to the collective. As long as everyone is focused on what isn't working, you're going to continue to get more of what isn't working. And until that is so destroyed that you realize that you've got to build something different. And then when you come together realizing that you've got to build something different, that's when the vibration is going to go up. And that's when all of that's going to get replaced with something that is more sophisticated, that works for your now more sophisticated vibration of your planet.
Oh, this is fabulous. And I want to bring David back because I want to finish off this conversation with him, and I'm running out of time on the show. So I'm going to say thank you, Stream, for connecting, and we'll be looking forward to talking to you the next time that we bring you in, or that David brings you in. But this is very interesting stuff, and I'll tell everybody why it's interesting from my perspective. It's interesting to me because so often in life, we are presented with the idea that regardless of whether we are liberal, conservative, using the politics thing, liberal, conservative, moderate, libertarian, socialist, green, whatever it might be, we have to stick with that. And what the stream was just talking about there points out that's actually not necessarily to our own benefit. It actually is to our benefit to look at things from a variety of different perspectives. And David, I'm not sure if you were catching a whole lot of what came at the end of that conversation with the stream, but what I was picking up from it was the stream was kind of pointing out how we are in this time of high polarity, this great divide going on right now, that you are urged to pick one side or the other, and ne'er the twain shall meet. And it's this very, in my terms, it's a very rigid way of dealing with stuff, and it ends up creating some destruction to it as well. But what I took out of the conversation was the realization that I don't have to worry about whether or not I fit into a particular category anymore. It doesn't really matter whether, if one moment I'm feeling a little bit liberal, another moment I'm feeling a little conservative, and a third moment I'm feeling green, and a fourth moment I'm feeling libertarian. Just because I am a being that changes. I don't have to fit a label. I don't have to fit a camp. I don't have to fit any of that stuff. I found that to be very liberating. So
Yeah,
I'm curious to see what you think.
I'm kind of catching up to what's happening here, but
Yeah.
I have I've been a Republican, I've been a Democrat, and I've been a libertarian. I probably describe myself more as that now, personally, because I'm all over the place, and I'm amazed how often I hear from other people that are exactly the same way. But all you see and all you hear about is what's on the news, a rally,
Right.
protest, and completely polarized. And I would love to see something come up that is more fluid than that. And I don't know. I'm assuming there was a discussion about politics while I was gone.
Well, politics came in as a way of understanding a couple of the questions that were raised. The questions had to do with, well, two basic concepts. Well, actually, there were three questions. The first one was from Sarah. That was about vibrational flow. But the questions that Jim brought up were about, let's see, let me read it here. There was a previous podcast where he quoted the stream as saying that they've been physical, but they're no longer physical. They're too powerful. That, and he was trying to use the political paradigm as a way of explaining how it is that they're really beyond all that. That politics is a way of narrowing things down and putting everything into pigeonholes, and trying to put the stream into a pigeonhole doesn't really work. It's beyond that.
When I first started sharing, it was a real dilemma. I didn't want to just copy everyone else's verbiage, but the whole idea of we in channeling just made sense. But I know that the stream is not a we. Because as soon as you say we, you think, okay, there's how many? And somebody asked one time, how many beings? And the stream said, for your comprehension, you're talking to over 1,000 beings. And I really fixated on that. And I watched it back. I'm like, wow, okay, so now we know the stream's 1,000. And they're like, no. Like, oh my God, you just said that you're over 1,000 beings. Yeah, over 1,000 beings. We're everything. But they're trying to bring the conversation into alignment with the person that they're interacting with, so the person they're interacting with can comprehend. The point of that was, it's not three dead guys that you're talking to, and it's not an entity on another planet. This is source, and this is vast, and it's vast beyond your comprehension. And I remember fairly right after I started the podcast, where I was really starting to share, because it really amped up when I started sharing it on the podcast, because I never shared it with anyone other than in my book and my writings, other than that, and which nobody had seen yet. And somebody brought me something. It was supposed to be like a CBD something, but it obviously had more than just, now that I know about that stuff, I was stoned. I took way too much. It was some sort of an edible. It was supposed to just, relieve some pain. And I got really stoned, and I decided to go meditate while I was stoned. And I had not been stoned in decades at that point. And in my meditation, I remember hearing coming out, and I still remember it. I heard 1,000 voices and 1,000 different languages that I've never understood before, and I heard before, and I understood all of it.
Oh my!
Yeah, and that was around that time that question got asked, and it was trippy. It was very, very trippy. And I think, again, that's my human brain building a scenario that I can somewhat comprehend of what that is. Is it 1,000? Is it different? What is that? But that's what dreams and hallucinations and experiencing other realms and all this stuff, that's what it is. Our human brain creating something to where we can sort of comprehend what we're experiencing, but it's not the vibration of Earth and not the vibration of humanity, certainly. And it is beyond our comprehension, but our brain is saying, okay, we're going to create this movie, this image for you to show you how vast this is, or show you how vastly different it is. I asked to see another planet one time. I said, I want to see another planet. This was in meditation. I was lucid. I'm not a big stoner.
Good to hear.
Yeah. So I was meditating, though, and I was really deep into meditation. I was really good at my practice at that point too, where I was really going deep, like an hour a day. I don't do that right now. And I remember saying, I want to see something that's very different than planet Earth. And I saw an environment of shapes. and it was just these forms that sort of blended together and separated, and it was really cool. I can't even, it's really hard to even describe. And to this day, did I really see that other planet? Did the stream really show me that? Or they show me something that I could sort of comprehend to demonstrate how different it can be out there from this? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm reminded of there's the novel, the only novel that the physicist Carl Sagan wrote called Cosmos. It was turned into a movie starring Jodie Foster, and in that story, Jodie's character ends up going through like a mind trip through wormholes and so forth, and ends up on this far distant planet on the side of a seashore, and learns in conversation with the being that she meets, who appears at first to be her father, that they had just created this environment because it was an environment they thought that she could handle,
Yeah.
and that she would feel safe in, and that she would feel comfortable in. And well, of course, I mean, we have a frame of reference as humans. How else can we understand anything other than in that frame of reference? And you experience directly what happens when you try to go outside of it. You had to have something to hang on to in order to describe it. Otherwise, you were lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well,
yeah,
and our brains
important.
can't create that other physical being. Notice every time someone sees an alien, it's very human adjacent.
Yes,
it's got
right.
2 legs, 2 arms, a head. It may have 1 eye or 3 or something like that. It's kind of that sci-fi version of, okay, it's kind of like a human, but it's different enough to where we know that it's not a human.
Yeah, and when they try to make a movie about amoebas attacking the Earth, the movies don't do very well. That just doesn't play.
But the stream has said it's Earth is its own unique vibration, and these other endless worlds are so vastly different that we can't comprehend it. And if we were meant to comprehend it, we would. But the whole point of this life is to come here and experience this vacation. You don't go to Hawaii to go skiing, right? You're coming here to be a human being on planet Earth at this time to have this experience. And if we were meant to have all of this past life knowledge, we would come equipped with that. Everything at best is our awareness that there's more than just this, and our mind creating something that sort of describes what that is.
I loved your use of the word vacation too. We don't normally think of life as being a vacation, but from a certain perspective, it is a vacation. It's a trip that we've taken
Yeah,
to
it's a
come into
weekend trip.
this
I
physical
love
life.
it. The stream says that it's a weekend trip. We're here on a little weekend trip. It's not the big deal that we make of it. We need to enjoy it, because if you think about all the elements of a weekend trip, there's not a lot of pressure on it. You're not going to Europe for two weeks or 4 weeks or something like that. You're just taking a little weekend trip. It's not a big deal. If it doesn't go well, then you get to go do another one, next weekend if you want. And whatever that experience is the experience that you have. And there's something to be gained from every experience. I love that analogy because it is very simple, and it really brings you down to the reality that, wow, we make such a big deal out of this life. But if we lighten up about it and stop placing so much pressure, thinking that it's the only shot we ever have, and just enjoy it for what it is, then suddenly we are finding our joy in it, whatever it is.
What a beautiful way to draw a conclusion on the show too, because that perspective is huge. I mean, we do take life so seriously, and indeed, your tire practice is all about helping people to kind of extract themselves from that. But what a great reminder! We're here to enjoy this life. It's probably our primary purpose is to enjoy it. Yeah, we're learning stuff. Yeah, we're expanding. But is there anything more important than enjoying it?
Right. Joy is it. And everything that we think that we want, we think we want it because it's going to bring us joy.
Yeah.
The stream has said on a live event one time, I love it. The stream said, there is someone right now at a 5-star resort living the life that you think you need to be joyful, and they're complaining about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a whole show in that one, so we'll leave that for next time. But thank you, David. It's been great. Thank you very much to our people who send in questions, and thank you especially to our podcast listeners, because we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.